The transport shuttle landed on the silver platform with a soft hum. The doors opened slowly, and warm air filled with strange smells rushed inside. Ha took a deep breath and stepped out first. His eyes went wide as he looked around at the impossible world before him. Galactic University of Prime stretched across the horizon like a dream made solid. Buildings floated in the air without any support. Bridges made of pure light connected towers that touched the clouds. Gardens grew upside down on the underside of platforms, their flowers glowing in colors Ha had never seen before. Beings of every shape and size walked, flew, and floated along pathways that seemed to move on their own. Stepped out beside him. She was shorter than Ha, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She touched the universal translator clipped to her ear and listened to the 1,000 voices around them. Languages from across the galaxy became words she could understand. Most of those words were about them. "Look at the primitives," someone whispered nearby. "I heard their planet still uses combustion for transportation," another voice laughed. "They probably think fire is magic." Ha heard these words too. He kept his face calm and pulled out his leather notebook from his bag. The notebook was old and worn, filled with handwritten notes from his years of study on Earth. Several beings nearby stared at it like it was an ancient artifact from a museum. A tall figure approached them. Overseer was made entirely of living crystal, with sharp edges that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. The Overseer's voice came from somewhere inside the crystal body, deep and cold. "You are the humans," said. It was not a question. "Yes," replied. "I am. This is Ha. We are honored to study here." His crystal form flickered with pale blue light. Ha's translator told him this meant doubt or maybe amusement. "The Galactic University has stood for 12,000 cycles. We have accepted students from 47 species, each representing civilizations with histories spanning 10,000 years or more. Your species achieved space travel 60 years ago. 60 years. Ha nodded. "We learn quickly." "We shall see," turned and began to float toward the main campus. "Follow me. You will be placed in remedial courses with the youngest students. Do not expect to keep pace with regular classes. Your dormitory has been prepared in the lower levels." They followed the crystal overseer through the crowds. Every being they passed stopped to stare. Some pointed with tentacles or claws or appendages that had no Earth name. A group of tall, four-armed beings with blue skin laughed loudly as they walked by. Their translator picked up the words, "Walking meat thinks it can learn." The journey to their dormitory took them down, down, down. They passed through beautiful halls with high ceilings, then through plain corridors, then through old tunnels that smelled of dust and forgotten time. Finally, stopped before a metal door covered in scratches and dents. "Your quarters," announced. The room inside was small and cold. 2 hard platforms served as beds. A single light flickered on the ceiling. The walls were bare metal with spots of rust. In one corner, old machinery sat covered in sheets. This had been a storage room. "Classes begin tomorrow at first light," said. "The schedule has been sent to your devices. Do try not to embarrass your species too badly." The crystal overseer floated away without another word. Hyan stood in silence for a long moment, then walked to one of the beds and sat down. The metal creaked under her weight. "They hate us," she said quietly. "They don't know us yet," Ha replied. He sat on the other bed and opened his notebook. "They see a young species from a small planet. They see animals who learn to build rockets. They don't see what we really are." "And what are we really?" Ha smiled and began to write in his notebook. "We are the species that went from living in caves to walking on our moon in 10,000 years. We are the species that refuses to accept limits. We are the species that asks questions that others have forgotten to ask." A knock came at their door. Ha opened it to find a small being with soft gray fur and large dark eyes. The creature barely reached his waist. "I am," the being said in a squeaky voice. I am assigned to help new students. I brought you food. Held up a container filled with strange items. Thank you, said, taking the container. That is very kind. Looked left and right nervously. I am not supposed to talk to you. The others say humans are dangerous and stupid, but I read about your planet. You have animals called dogs that you made your friends. That was nice. Ha laughed softly. We try to make friends with everyone. His ears twitched, even species that put you in a storage room. Especially those species, Ha said. They are the ones who need friends the most. After left, opened the food container. The items inside were strange but smelled pleasant enough. They ate in silence, listening to the sounds of the great university above them. Tomorrow will be hard, said. Yes. They will expect us to fail. Yes. Looked at her friend with fire in her eyes. Then we will not fail. We will make them remember the day humans came to their perfect university. We will make them question everything they think they know. Ha closed his notebook and placed it carefully beside his bed. That is exactly what I was thinking. Above them, the Galactic University continued its ancient routines, unchanged for thousands of years. The 47 species went about their lives, confident in their superiority, certain in their knowledge, secure in their traditions. They had no idea that everything was about to change. 2 humans slept in a forgotten storage room, dreaming of tomorrow, and tomorrow would be the beginning of a revolution. Ha walked into the great lecture hall and felt 300 pairs of eyes turned toward him. Some of those eyes were actual eyes. Others were light sensors, crystal surfaces, or organs he could not name. All of them looked at him with the same message: you do not belong here. The hall was ancient and beautiful. Seats rose in great circles around a central platform where Professor waited. The professor was made of living mercury, a being that flowed and shifted constantly while somehow keeping a shape that suggested a body. Professor had taught ancient philosophy at the Galactic University for 2,000 years. The course was famous across the Confederation as the most difficult and most respected class in all of academia. Ha had been told by 7 different advisors that he should not take this class. His remedial placement meant he was supposed to study basic concepts with young children, but Ha had requested a transfer, and some administrator had made a mistake and approved it. Now he climbed the steps to find a seat while whispers followed him like shadows. Is that the human? What is it doing here? It will not last one lecture. Ha found an empty seat near the middle of the hall. The students on either side of him immediately moved away, leaving a gap around him like he carried a disease. He opened his leather notebook and placed it on the desk. More whispers, more pointing. A being made of floating geometric shapes actually laughed out loud. Professor began the lecture. The mercury body flowed upward, and a voice like liquid metal filled the room. Today we continue our study of the 12 eternal truths. These are the mathematical certainties that govern all civilized thought. They have stood for 8,000 years without challenge, without change, without doubt. They are the foundation of all knowledge in the Galactic Confederation. Ha listened carefully as explained the 7th truth, that reality is fixed and measurable, that any properly designed system will produce the same results regardless of who observes it. This was considered so obvious that it needed no proof. It was simply true. But Ha knew something. He knew about a German scientist from old Earth who had discovered something strange about very small particles. He knew that observing something could change it. He knew that truth itself might depend on perspective. His hand went up before he could stop himself. The lecture hall fell absolutely silent. Professor's mercury form stopped moving entirely, which Ha's translator said indicated extreme surprise. The human wishes to speak, said slowly. This has never happened before. I have a question, Ha said. His voice was steady even though his heart was beating fast. What happens if the observer changes the system being observed? rippled with what might have been laughter. The eternal truths are objective. The observer is irrelevant. This is basic philosophy. On Earth, we discovered that observing a particle changes its behavior. When we look at very small things, the act of looking affects what we see. We call this the uncertainty principle. It suggests that truth depends on perspective. The silence that followed was so deep that Ha could hear his own breathing. Then chaos exploded. "Impossible," shouted a being of pure energy. "Primitive superstition," cried a creature with 17 limbs. "Remove the human from this hall." Professor raised a mercury appendage for quiet. The noise slowly died down. "Young human," the professor said, "what you describe is fantasy. Reality does not change because someone looks at it. This is the mistake of a mind." Ha felt fear crawling up his spine, but he did not back down. "I can prove it. Earth scientists proved it nearly 200 years ago. The mathematics exist. They work." A small voice spoke from somewhere in the upper seats. "I found it." Everyone turned to look. A young sat at her desk, her slender fingers moving through a holographic display. They were known for their quick minds and quicker research skills. This one was called Whisper of Stars, and she had just accessed Earth's scientific archives. "The human speaks truth," Whisper of Stars said. "Here is the work of, here are the experiments, here is the mathematics." She projected the information onto the hall's main display. Equations filled the air, beautiful and undeniable. The mathematics showed exactly what Ha had described. Observation affected reality. The observer was part of the system. Professor studied the equations for a long moment. The mercury form became very still. "This is unexpected," finally said. A student in the front row stood up angrily. "This changes nothing. Human mathematics must be flawed." "The mathematics are correct," Whisper of Stars replied quietly. "I have checked them 3 times." Ha looked around the hall. He saw confusion. He saw anger. He saw fear. But he also saw something else in a few faces. He saw curiosity. He saw the beginning of questions that had not been asked for 8,000 years. "I am not saying the eternal truths are wrong," Ha said carefully. "I am asking if they are complete. I am asking if there might be more to learn." The lecture ended early. Professor dismissed the class without another word, but Ha saw the Mercury professor studying the human mathematics long after everyone else had left. By evening, Ha's question had spread across the entire university network. 3 philosophy professors sent messages requesting meetings with him. 2 others filed formal complaints demanding his immediate expulsion. Students gathered in groups to argue about observation and reality, and whether anything was truly certain. Ha sat in his storage room dormitory, writing in his notebook. Returned late from her engineering studies, her eyes bright with excitement. "I heard what you did," she said. "Everyone is talking about it." "I only asked a question." Smiled. "Sometimes a question is more powerful than an answer. They built their whole civilization on ideas they stopped questioning. You just reminded them that questions still exist." Ha looked at his notebook, at the words he had written from thinkers and scientists who had lived and died on a small blue planet far away. "Tomorrow they might expel me," he said. "Maybe," agreed. "Or maybe tomorrow they will start to think again." Somewhere above them, in the ancient halls of the philosophy department, Professor continued to study human mathematics late into the night, mercury form flowing with colors that had not appeared in 2,000 years. Had spent 3 weeks in the engineering library. She slept very little. She ate only when brought food to her desk. Her eyes were red from staring at holographic blueprints, but her mind was sharper than ever. The Cascade Drive was the greatest achievement in galactic engineering. It had been invented 400 years ago by a brilliant team of scientists from 12 different species. The drive allowed ships to travel faster than light by creating ripples in the fabric of space itself. Every ship in the Confederation used some version of this technology. Every engineer agreed it was perfect. Disagreed. She had noticed something in her first week of study. The Cascade drive achieved 94.7% efficiency. This was considered incredible, almost miraculous. But that meant 5.3% of the energy was being wasted. Where did that energy go? The answer was harmonic resonance. When the drive created ripples in space, some energy escaped as vibrations that served no purpose. Every engineer knew about this waste. They had simply accepted it as unavoidable, a law of physics that could not be changed. On Earth had studied regenerative systems. Humans had learned to capture waste energy and put it back to work. Cars that recharged their batteries when braking. Buildings that turned body heat into electricity. Machines that fed on their own inefficiency. Why could the same principle not work for the Cascade drive? 3 weeks of calculations later, stood before the Engineering Council. 15 of the greatest engineering minds in the galaxy sat in a semicircle around her. Chief engineer, and being with 17 compound eyes and mandibles that clicked constantly, leaned forward with clear disbelief on his alien face. You requested this meeting, clicked. You said you found a flaw in the Cascade drive. This better not be a waste of our time, human. His hands were shaking, but she hid them behind her back. Thank you for seeing me, Chief Engineer. I know my species is new to space travel. I know we have much to learn, but I believe I have found something important. Then speak. Activated her display. Numbers and diagrams filled the air between her and the council. The Cascade drive loses 5.3% of its energy to harmonic resonance. Your engineers have accepted this as a fundamental limit, but it is not a limit. It is a choice. 17 eyes blinked in sequence. Explain. The resonance energy is not destroyed. It escapes into the space around the ship as vibrations. What if we could capture those vibrations and feed them back into the drive? On Earth, we do this with many machines. We call it regenerative feedback. A council member with scales like emeralds spoke up. We have considered this. The energy is too scattered to collect efficiently. Yes, with current collection methods, agreed. But I have designed a new collection grid based on human acoustic engineering. On Earth, we learned to capture sound waves and convert them to electricity. Sound is just vibration. The same principles apply to the harmonic resonance from the Cascade drive. She displayed her design. 3 weeks of work reduced to a series of elegant diagrams and equations. The new collection grid wrapped around the existing drive like a shell, catching the waste energy before it could escape and channeling it back into the system. According to my calculations, said, this modification would increase the drive's efficiency to 99.2%. Silence filled the chamber, then burst into clicking laughter. You suggest we have overlooked something for 4 centuries. You, a child from a species that discovered fire a blink ago in cosmic time. I suggest that you stopped looking, replied. Her voice remained calm. You achieved 94.7% efficiency and called it perfect. You accepted the remaining loss as inevitable, but nothing is inevitable. Every problem has a solution if you refuse to stop searching. The emerald-scaled engineer leaned forward. Your mathematics are interesting, human, but mathematics on paper means nothing. Has this been tested? Hesitated. Not yet. I do not have access to the materials needed for a prototype. Stood, his many legs clicking against the floor. Then this meeting is over. Come back when you have proof, child. Until then, do not waste the council's time with dreams. The council members began to leave. Stood alone in the chamber, watching her 3 weeks of work fade from the display screens. She felt tears building behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. She did not know that 2 junior engineers had secretly her design files before leaving. She did not know that another human student who had arrived a week after her had already obtained the materials she needed through creative trading with sympathetic aliens. 3 nights later was woken by a knock on her storage room door. Stood outside, his face bright with excitement. "Come with me," he said. "I have something to show you." He led her to a forgotten maintenance bay in the lowest level of the engineering building. There, sitting on a makeshift test platform, was a small but complete cascade drive fitted with collection grid. "I built it," said. "I used your design, everything is ready." Stared at the device with wide eyes. "Where did you get the materials?" Smiled. "Has many friends. Whisper of Stars knows how to access restricted supply systems. The student in my propulsion class hates and was happy to provide components. It turns out that many beings at this university are curious about humans." Approached the prototype slowly, her design made real, her theory ready to be tested. "If I am wrong, this could explode," she said. "Then we die learning," replied, "but I do not think you are wrong." Took a deep breath and activated the drive. The device hummed to life. Energy readings appeared on monitoring equipment. The numbers climbed and stabilized and held steady. 99.2% efficiency, exactly as had predicted. And looked at each other in the glow of the working prototype. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. The next morning, Chief Engineer found a full report on his desk, along with complete test data from the prototype. The report was signed by 11 engineers from 7 different species, all confirming that a human student had just revolutionized faster-than-light travel. The first improvement to the Cascade drive in 400 years bore a human name. Had been warned by 3 separate advisors not to present her paper. They told her it was dangerous. They told her it would end her academic career before it began. They told her that some ideas were too radical even for the Galactic University. She presented it anyway. The War Studies seminar met in an old stone chamber decorated with banners from 1,000 ancient conflicts. Weapons from across the galaxy hung on the walls, each one representing a war that had been fought and forgotten. Admiral sat at the head of the table, his scaled body covered in medals and honors earned over 2 centuries of military service. Around him sat strategists, historians, and military theorists from a dozen species. And one human girl with fire in her heart. "The Galactic Confederation has maintained peace for 6,000 years, began, her voice steady despite her fear. "This peace is built on the doctrine of proportional response. When one side attacks, the other responds with exactly equal force. Neither side gains advantage. Eventually, both sides grow tired and negotiate. This is considered the only civilized approach to war." Admiral nodded his massive head. "This is known. This is proven. Why does a human child waste our time with basic facts?" "Because the facts are wrong," said. The room went cold. Several beings shifted in their seats. A strategist with 4 eyes blinked all of them in surprise. Activated her display. Images from Earth's history filled the air. Battles, bombs, burning cities, the terrible cost of human warfare. "My species has fought many wars," she continued. "Our history is bloody and painful, but we learned something important from all that suffering. We learned that proportional response does not end wars, it extends them. It turns conflict into a wound that never heals." She showed the numbers. On Earth, proportional conflicts sometimes lasted for generations. Families passed hatred down to their children like a dark inheritance. Small disputes grew into eternal feuds. "But we also learned another way," said. "We learned that decisive victory, followed by generous peace, could end conflict permanently." She displayed new images. The rebuilding of Germany after the Second World War. The transformation of Japan from enemy to ally. Countries that had tried to destroy each other becoming partners within a single generation. "Complete defeat is not cruelty," explained. "It is clarity. When a conflict truly ends, when there is no doubt about the outcome, then healing can begin. Both sides can stop fighting and start building together. Admiral rose from his seat, his scales bristling. You advocate for genocide, for annihilation of the defeated. No, shook her head firmly. I advocate for finishing conflicts so that rebuilding can begin. Germany was not destroyed. Japan was not erased. They were defeated completely, and then they were helped to recover. Their former enemies became their closest friends. This is not destruction. This is resolution. A strategist with tentacles waved for attention. What you describe sounds ideal, but the Confederation has achieved peace through proportional response. Your argument ignores our success. Took a deep breath. Has the Confederation achieved peace? Let me show you what I found in your own records. New information filled the display. Conflict after conflict, stretched across thousands of years and never truly resolved. 47 ongoing border disputes between member species. Red. 12 frozen conflicts where fighting has paused but peace has never been signed. 2 species locked in perpetual low-level war for 800 years. Billions of beings living in constant tension, waiting for the next attack, never knowing real security. She looked directly at Admiral. You have maintained the absence of total war, but you have not achieved peace. You have achieved managed suffering. Your citizens live their whole lives afraid, not because war is happening, but because war might happen at any moment. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. And what does a species that nearly destroyed itself with nuclear weapons know about peace? We know that we came close to ending ourselves, admitted. And that fear taught us to work harder for real solutions. We did not accept eternal tension as normal. We demanded better. We found ways to truly end conflicts and move forward. She paused, looking around the room at beings who had studied war for centuries. I am not saying our way is perfect. Human history is full of failures and mistakes, but our approach gave us something yours has not: the ability to turn enemies into partners, the chance for genuine reconciliation. The debate that followed lasted 11 hours. Voices were raised. Accusations were made. 3 strategists stormed out in anger, but others stayed, asking questions, challenging, testing her ideas from every angle. By the time the session ended, something had shifted. Admiral himself requested access to Earth's full strategic archives. The War Studies Curriculum Committee announced a formal review of the doctrine of proportional response for the first time in 2,000 years. Returned to the storage room dormitory exhausted but alive with energy. And were waiting for her. News had spread across the university about her presentation. You should be careful, said. Some powerful beings are very angry with you. I know, replied, but I had to speak. Their 6,000 years of peace is a lie. Billions of beings are suffering because no one is willing to truly end the conflicts between them. Ha opened his notebook and wrote something down. We came here as students, he said. Now we are starting to become something else. What? Asked. Ha looked at his 3 friends, each one carrying ideas that the galaxy had never considered. Questioners, challengers, maybe even teachers. Outside their storage room, the university buzzed with discussion. In strategy chambers and philosophy halls, in engineering labs and history classrooms, the word spread. The humans were changing things. The humans were making them think. And for the first time in thousands of years, beings across the Confederation were asking themselves, what else have we accepted that we should have questioned? The answer would shake the galaxy to its foundations. 1 standard year had passed since the first humans arrived at the Galactic University of Prime. The 4 students who had been assigned to a storage room dormitory now stood in the Grand Hall, surrounded by beings from every corner of the Confederation. The hall was full. Every seat was occupied. Beings stood in the aisles and floated near the ceiling. Representatives from all 47 member species had come to witness this moment. The air hummed with anticipation and uncertainty. Overseer waited on the central platform, crystalline form shimmering with colors that shifted constantly. The four humans walked through the crowd toward the Overseer. Ha carried his leather notebook, now worn almost to pieces from constant use, walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had proven herself beyond all doubt, held her head high despite the enemies she had made with her controversial ideas, moved with the easy grace of a builder who knew his worth. The crowd parted for them. Some beings still looked at them with suspicion or anger, but many more looked at them with something new, respect. 1 year ago, began the crystal voice filling every corner of the vast hall. 4 humans arrived at this institution. They were placed in remedial courses. They were given a storage room for their quarters. They were expected to fail, to withdraw, to prove that their primitive species had no place among the enlightened civilizations of the Confederation. The Overseer paused. Light rippled through the crystal form in patterns Ha had learned to recognize as deep emotion. They did not fail. They did not withdraw. Instead, they caused more disruption in 1 year than this university has seen in 3 centuries. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ha felt tense beside him. They did not know what was coming. Ha questioned our most ancient philosophical certainties, continued. He reminded us that observation affects reality, that truth may depend on perspective. 3,000 years of accepted wisdom are now being because one human asked one question. Ha clutched his notebook tightly. Improved the Cascade Drive, our most perfect technology. She achieved what 4 centuries of our greatest engineers declared impossible. Ships across the Confederation are already being fitted with her collection grid design. Took a small breath. Challenged the doctrine of proportional response, the foundation of our 6,000-year peace. Because of her, we are finally examining the frozen conflicts, the eternal tensions, the managed suffering that we had accepted as normal. Straightened her spine. Built a working prototype from scraps and determination. He showed us that innovation does not require permission, only courage. Smiled quietly. Light intensified. I did not say disruption was unwelcome. The grand hall fell completely silent. Your species is young, the Overseer continued. You are primitive by our measures. You lack our history, our technology, our accumulated knowledge. And yet, the crystal form flickered in a way that suggested humility. You see what we overlook. You question what we accept. You remember something we had forgotten. What is that? Ha asked, his voice steady. That knowledge is not a destination. It is a journey. We stopped walking. You reminded us to move. Gestured toward the hall's ancient doors. They opened slowly, revealing a new wing of the university that gleamed with fresh construction. The building was beautiful, combining architectural styles from Earth with designs from across the galaxy. It stood as proof that different perspectives could create something greater than either could alone. The Department of Integrative Studies announced. This new department will be dedicated to perspectives that challenge our assumptions. It will welcome ideas that make us uncomfortable. It will honor questions as much as answers. The crowd buzzed with reaction. Some beings protested loudly, others cheered, most simply stared in amazement. Ha will chair the philosophy division, continued. Will lead engineering innovation, will direct strategic studies, will head applied research. They will not be students any longer. Found her voice. We are students, we came here to learn. You were students, corrected gently. Now you are teachers, and we, the Overseer's light dimmed to something soft and almost humble. We are ready to learn. The 4 humans looked at each other. Ha saw tears forming in his eyes. He saw disbelief on his face. He saw a smile growing on his lips. We accept, Ha said, speaking for all of them. They walked together toward their new department. The building welcomed them with doors that opened automatically, as if it had been waiting for them all along. Inside, they found laboratories and classrooms and offices, all empty and waiting to be filled with ideas. Ha stopped at the entrance and looked back at the grand hall. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy watched them. Some still hated them, some still doubted them, but many were beginning to understand. He opened his leather notebook one final time and wrote on the last empty page. They had 12,000 years of answers. We brought the questions they forgot to ask. Perhaps that is humanity's gift to the stars. Not our knowledge, but our doubt. Not our certainty, but our willingness to be wrong. Not our achievements, but our refusal to stop trying to achieve more. Behind them, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in recorded history, every species in the Grand Hall rose together. Beings who had not spoken to each other in centuries stood side by side. Enemies and rivals and strangers united in a single act. They applauded. The sound filled the hall and spilled out into the university grounds. It echoed through the floating buildings and along the light bridges. It reached the gardens that grew upside down and the libraries that held the wisdom of a million worlds. It sounded like the beginning of something new. Took Ha's hand, put her arm around shoulders. The four humans stood together, looking out at a galaxy that had finally begun to see them. "What do we do now?" asked quietly. Ha closed his worn notebook and slipped it into his bag. "Now we do what humans have always done. We explore, we learn, we grow, and we help others do the same." They walked into their new department, leaving the old world behind. The future stretched ahead of them, vast and unknown and full of possibilities. The first human students had shaken up the Galactic University with unseen perspectives. Now they would shake up the entire galaxy. And the galaxy, after 12,000 years of standing still, was finally ready to move.